Happy Friday, Miami. This is Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. Check out my website, miamicondo.club. It's Friday afternoon. It's the last hour of the traditional work week. Stop listening to your boss. If you left early, turn off that soft rock. Put us on. Why? Because we're going to talk about what's going on in the South Florida real estate market. Who's going to lead it? Who is the moderator of this discussion? It's no one else than Daniel Hernandez. He is a real estate professional. He works over at Compass Real Estate. He does houses. He does single family. He does houses, single family, which is one and the same. He also does condos. All that being said, let me go ahead and pass the baton over to Daniel. What's going on, Daniel? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Peter. Just trying to stay dry. It's very rainy over here in Miami today. Rainy, wet, and humid. But why do you need a sauna in your house if you can just go outside for 15 or 20 minutes? Right.
Or if you're fortunate enough to still live in a house that has jealousy windows, you know, the ones where you sort of turn it and there's
with absolutely zero insulation. Your electricity bill is like $500 in August. Sure.
Yeah, but you don't have to wear moisturizer because your skin is always nice and soft.
You know what? It's funny. My skin has acclimated to Miami, being here for forever. And if I go anywhere above sea level, it's just dry. My hands crack. I need moisturizer. My lips get chapped. It's awful. But
let me just add, I used to go to Vegas for business during the Great Recession, and I'd go out there, my nose would bleed because it's so dry.
Yeah.
And I always thought people thought maybe I was doing some, even though I wasn't, but I'd always have blood. And then with a white shirt, it made it very challenging. Oh, kind of like going to an Italian restaurant, eating red sauce pasta with a white shirt. It takes a certain
I keep on doing that. Why do I keep on torturing myself by going to eat bolognese with a white shirt? But in any event, everyone, we are episode 12 of Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. What is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami? It is a no-nonsense South Florida real estate talk show. As Peter mentioned, my name is Daniel Hernandez. I work at Compass on top of Monty's in Coconut Grove. Peter Zalewski is a financial analyst and former member of Miami Realtors who digs deep into the numbers. And together, every week, we try to bring you 5 stories. And the format is the following. So we got an hour. So stick with us for an hour. Promise you'll learn at least a thing or two. Stick with us for an hour. We're going to roll through 5 topics. With every topic, we have 7 minutes. If we go a little bit over time, it's fine. We've allocated time for that. At the end of each topic, we're either going to buy, sell, or hold. We may not agree on everything. Actually, typically we don't. But at the end of this show, you'll know a little bit more about what you know about Miami than you know right now. So kicking it off, Peter, the Real Deal reported, which is one of our many publications regarding real estate, trades, as we'll call it down here in Miami, reported that the streetscape, which is kind of like a landscape, but on the street, like a park, medians, neutral ground, depending on where you are in the country, at Lincoln Road, at the very end of Lincoln Road, so where the Ritz-Carlton is, you might know it as the alley behind the Ritz-Carlton, the $1,000 per night hotel on Miami Beach. But they're going to beautify it. Why are they going to beautify it? Because the developers plan to build an ultra-luxury tower right behind the hotel, right behind the Sagamore. It's going to start at $15 million per unit, which is becoming the norm on Miami Beach nowadays. But what I want to talk about is, why do developers do this, Peter? Why not just build my building and what the heck? The people on the street can enjoy the park or not enjoy the park or enjoy the alleyway behind my building. Well, why do developers contribute to beautifying the landscapes where they're building their building?
I mean, to put it simple and to be blunt and frank, basically it's typically a shakedown by the local municipality. All right, you want to come in our community. We know you're going to make a ton of cash. Remember, developers typically pre-construction, they're shooting for 30% profit margin. They get in early on a cycle. They might be looking at 50% profit margin, and the city wants to get something back. They're going to have to deal with the traffic. They're going to have to do with all these other things. That's what the city says. Even though when new construction comes online, the city, the county, and the school board, they all enjoy the increased value, which means more money in the coffers for them because property taxes are 2%. But basically, it's a shakedown. The other reason why you will see parks, you'll see some of these contributions to the community made, because developers asking for something special And in order to get something special, it's a quid pro quo. For instance, let's go to a place like Coral Gables. Coral Gables has a certain height. If you go ahead and adopt a certain architectural look, which is, let's call it Mediterranean, let's call it Spanish. If you add that element to your design, you're able to go higher. You can do more. So it's incentivizing developers is what Coral Gable does, and the developers take advantage of it because they're able to get big numbers price per square foot, and then after a while, it all sort of it comes together, and you get something fantastic like maybe Art Deco district in South Beach.
I understand. So how does that play into what we're seeing? You mentioned Coral Gables. I've always seen in the news over the past 6 months that Alan Morris is making a big contribution to beautify that park, that median in front of the plaza where what was the name of that group? Agave Development built where the Fogo de Chao is and all this new retail that's opening up. And then they're also making a big contribution to the Kirk Monroe Park, which is sort of like that dilapidated park right off of Grand Avenue where Alan Morris is putting up that big ziggurat development.
Yeah, the tennis.
Is that where where the tennis center is, where the concrete
right across from the elementary school.
Exactly, right
Yep.
there. So who makes up these numbers though? Is it 2 million? Is it 5 million? Is it 10 million? Is it just a matter of how much money developers stand to make in these developments? How do you figure out what the improvements on a park cost?
Well, first and foremost, developers don't want to spend any money whatsoever. They're going to minimize how much cash they need to spend or can spend. And typically, the only reason they do spend is if they're forced to. Perfect example would be Russell Gelbit over in David Martin over in South Beach. So when you're coming into South Beach, you see that, what was it called? Five Park. So basically, they took all of this dirt right at the southern end of South Beach, right where Fifth Street, a causeway or the causeway from the MacArthur dumps into Fifth Street. He built one tower, or they built one tower. In order to do that, they basically had to take 2 blocks and turn it into a park. So developers do not want to spend money unless it's going to jack up the value, in theory, of the condos. And then this way, they argue they can go ahead and charge more from because they're building a community, they're adding something to it. But I would tell you, do not believe the numbers they're telling you they're going to spend, and also do not believe whatever's promised is going to be delivered. Let me give you a perfect example. Take a look at
the Kaseya Center, the park behind this.
You could go Kaseya Center, but what I was going to point to is Paraíso. Paraíso is a 4-building complex that was built up there about 30th or so in Biscayne and greater downtown Miami. And they were supposed to build a park in order to close some streets and do some readjustment of the plat. And what did they do? They built a park that's maybe half the size of a single family home lot. Small little park. They dump all kinds of stuff in there. It's overwhelming, and there's no space for the dogs to walk. And then what do they do with the other portion of the park? They built a high-end restaurant where it's going to cost you $25 for a drink. So the moral of the story is they will promise you everything in order to get approval. Once they actually deliver it, there's nobody there to enforce what was promised and what ultimately got delivered. Hence, behind the Kaseya Center and that big, beautiful park we were supposed to get 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Yeah, we never got it. So
it's the most beautiful parking lot. It's a parking lot with the most beautiful view you've ever seen.
Smoke and mirrors. But understand why. Developer makes more money, and the city, bigger tax base to hit them at 2%. A third to the county, a third to the school board, a third to the city. It's all real simple numbers.
So am I understanding this correctly? Amara, that's the name of the restaurant, $25.
Amara, yep.
Amara was supposed to be part of a larger cohesive park?
Yeah, well, the Amara, and Michael Schwartz, I think, is the gentleman behind Amara. He's the one who's got the restaurants in Zion District. Michael's genuine, and they also opened up, I think, Harry's Pizza. And then they brought him in to be the lead.
Which just closed in Coconut Grove, by the way. Mr. 01 ran him out of the Groves.
Oh, Harry's Pizza. Well, they used to have a happy hour, $10 pies.
There's a rumor swirling around that Miami Slice is actually supposed to open up in that location. So they might give Mr. 01 a run for their money. If you want to buy a $9 slice of pizza. But
if you want to buy a $9 slice. So up in that Edgewater area, and again, it'll be from the Julia Tuttle South to about the MacArthur Causeway. Then it'll be, the Bay effectively in between, let's call it Miami Avenue and the Bay. So the problem is all those streets go east-west. And as a result, all the real estate views are north-south. So in order for the related group to go ahead and build this 4-building complex and have water views so they could get more money, they went to the city and they said, hey, can you kind of rejigger the streets This way we can kind of make a cul-de-sac type of feel, and we can offer all of these buildings with views. And the city bid on it because a park was promised. One portion of the park was going to be this restaurant for these 4 condo towers. I don't know, 300 to 400 units per building. And the other portion was going to be a dog park because there's basically no green around there. And, if you get 1,200 units together and you got 0.5 dogs per unit, they need somewhere to go. So this park was supposed to serve it. And lo and behold, when you see the final product, you're like, where the hell's the park? I mean, the valet center, like where do the cars queue up to get valeted? It's bigger than the park, in my opinion. Nah, be a little sarcastic, but
there's something interesting here. Is that a real estimate for number of dogs in condos? 2 for 1?
Yeah, about 0.5, and then on a unit count, it's 1.5.
No kidding. That's a lot of dogs.
So you look at Icon Brickell, you got 1,800 units, 1,700 something. So multiply that, or better yet, go to Panorama. Panorama, the rental tower that was
tallest residential building south of New York City.
Yeah. So go in there, and they actually have a dog area inside the building, I'm told, and then outside. So this is why I adopted the rule when I do my walking tours. I tell people, do not walk on the grass, because there might be, it takes me back to my days of visiting Cambodia. If you step in certain areas, there might still be landmines that are buried that are going to blow the heck out of the water buffaloes in Cambodia. Well, here in South Florida, because of the concentration of dogs and there's no green, you have to really watch where you walk. So I tell people, walk in the street.
And that also parrots your hurricane tip of not living above the 8th floor, because hold on, I'm going to remember this correctly. Folks do doo-doo in, well, not people. Folks let their dogs do doo-doo in the fire escapes below them. No, above them.
No, above them.
So they don't have to walk down through when the elevators don't have any.
Correct.
All right. So, well, that brings us up on time on developer improvements. But that tidbit of information about hurricanes and high rises is very timely, because we are in the midst. We're getting into the dog days of hurricane season, folks. August and September. Remember, what was that now? 24 years ago? Is this the 24th anniversary of Hurricane Andrew? August 1992?
92. Yep.
August 1992. So 23 years ago. I'm sorry. 23 years ago, in a few weeks, August 20-something, it was 1992, Hurricane Andrew ripped through what they call today as Palmetto Bay. Now you have multi-million-dollar properties there, but 23 years ago, it was a disaster zone. It was the most costly natural disaster in U.S. history at that moment. No?
Yes, correct. Well, part of it though was too. Yeah, but part of it was Carl Hiaston, who's a Miami Herald columnist, award-winning columnist. He wrote a book called Stormy Weather, and in it, he kind of details some of the Miami hustles, the shenanigans that went down, where people were basically playing the insurance companies. So you got to kind of
people insurance fraud in South Florida. That's crazy. I don't believe it for a second.
They actually told me when I arrived there. I got here in October of '93, so shortly after. They told me the hurricane at the time. A lot of locals called it St. Andrew, like St. Nick. That guy with the big beard who lives in the North Pole, because the insurance companies came and St. Andrew brought all of these gifts so people could take the cash and go and buy a house up in Miramar.
Well, you heard about the story of the factory man who sold his factory, and he runs into the other factory man, and they're chatting it up. He says, "Well, how did you sell your factory?" He goes, "Oh, it burned down in a fire." Wow, that's awful. And the other factory man turns to him and he says, "Well, how did you sell your factory?" He goes, "Oh, it got blown away in a hurricane." And he kind of looks at him and he says, How do you start a hurricane?"
Exactly.
St. Andrew. Developer improvement, buy, sell, hold, Peter. You're selling it.
Yeah, I'm selling it. I'm selling it because there's no verification. There is nobody there to make sure that what was promised actually gets delivered. And most of the times what I've seen, it never gets delivered. What's promised. It's a bill of goods.
I try to be more optimistic than you, but I have to sell it with you. I think it's a press release. I think it's pretty renderings. Sounds cynical, but there should be verification. So you know what? Maybe I'm going to hold that. I'm going to put it on hold and hope for the best.
Fair enough. And, Daniel, just before you move on, I would tell you all these economic development authorities that come out and announce all these new jobs they brought. Oh, we brought these new jobs. Oh, we got this new investment. There's never any kind of follow up to see if everything that was promised and all the money that was earmarked, if it actually plays out. I mean, maybe they do it, but I would tell you, if what was being promised was actually done, we would hear about it through a what? Press release.
Park on the Bay behind the Casella Center, formerly American Airlines, formerly FTX. But I think the history books will make us forget about that one. All right, we're putting a sell. I think I'm going to have to add a Daniel buy, sell, hold, and a Peter buy, sell, hold, because we're disagreeing, and that is good public discourse. Hey, adios to Andiamo. That's not Italian and Spanish. Andiamo Pizza is still until the end of September, folks. Andiamo Pizza on Biscayne and what is that? 48th? 50th?
I call it 54th because you know how that's like carves out over there.
Yeah,
so you got to come in off of 54th.
If you're going up Biscayne, folks, it's the beautiful modern looking building that just pops out there on the corner. It looks like something out of like a retro futurism comic book. But that for the last 24 years, I think they opened in 2001.
Yeah, so New Times Story says 23 years. Yep.
Yeah, so 2001, Mark Soika, and you might know Mark Soika from his restaurant, his eponymous restaurant that was across the street. It was called Soika. He opened that in 1999. What do we know Mark Soika from? It's from the News Cafe, guys. From News Cafe that opened up in the 80s. And then Van Dyke's that opened up on Lincoln Road that closed. I mean, Van Dyke, I remember going to Van Dyke's when I was a kid, and they had the best chocolate milk. I mean, if I was like a little influencer girl with my TikTok influencer camera, and maybe I still might become that person, but guys, look at the best chocolate milk ever. And they gave you a little sugar stick to put in your chocolate milk. I don't know. It's a 5-year-old's dream. Van Dyke's closed.
I remember Van Dyke's. They had a second floor jazz bar.
Well, go to Van Dyke's, there was an office building, and if memory serves me correct, when Dave Barry got divorced, he actually rented the top floor unit in there.
The former Miami Herald columnist, the guy that made the TV show about called Dave.
Yeah,
interesting. I did not know that.
Urban legend. I don't think I'm making it up. But so Mark Soika opened up. Soika opened up Andiamo Pizza. Still very good. But their lease is up. They have no plans to relocate, per the New Times article. He sold Soika to 50 Eggs Group. Those are the folks behind the Southern Comfort Food Place Yardbird, right off of Lincoln Road, behind where the Banana Republic used to be, behind the Lincoln Road movie theater. I think Yardbird is still there. They also did a Lime Mexican Grill. They've had several concepts over the years, and Soika sold Soika, the restaurant, to 50 Eggs Group in 2019. They changed the name of that restaurant to Chica, which was a fun sort of Latin fusion vibe place. I went a few times. It was a good time. But that closed this past January. And, that's just another notch in the belt of a string of restaurant closures that we've seen in Miami over the past few years now. Some folks have dubbed it the Miami restaurant apocalypse, which does sound rather ominous, but it strikes a chord. It's happening, and it's not just the new flashy imports coming in from New York and Turkey and London and all these folks who are looking for riches in Miami. There's real staples like Andiamo. And why do you think that is, Peter? Is it just rents are getting too expensive? Restaurateurs are hesitant to raise their prices, or maybe they've raised their prices and people are like, it's not that great. Like what do you see happening? What do you see on the ground?
Well, let's get the time machine, because I think there's a bigger picture here. I think this is a symbolic end of the gentrification process. To me, when you see somebody like Soika, who's a first mover, just like he was in South Beach, he went to a News Cafe. Remember, Johnny Versace used to hang out there. All the models came. It was the place. It was kind of like, Tony Goldman. He goes into Wynwood. So once these old timers, old man Soika, and I call everybody old man in a positive way. So old man Soika was in there. And, think about what's going on at the time. You got hookers up and down Biscayne Boulevard, Morningside. They got to put the guard gate there in order. It's this little pocket of single family houses because of all of the stuff going on to the west of the train tracks and the west of Biscayne Boulevard. You're going to get into what ultimately becomes Little Haiti. So it's this concentration There's all kinds of stuff going on. There's all kinds of concerns. Is it safe? Is it this? Is that? So when Soyka went in, just like when Goldman went into Wynwood, it was cheap dirt. And that's why they went in there. That's why they had an opportunity to do what they did. Now that it's evolved 23 years later, 25 years later or so, now I think gentrification is over. And now we kind of got what we got. And it's time for, front runners or first movers like Soyka to kind of call it a day. Plus, he said in the story when they sold, what related to Soyka's, when he sold it to what would become Chica's, that, he was basically just getting older and he didn't necessarily want to run as hard or whatever the case of it was. I kind of remember that. But I would say this is a symbolic end of the gentrification process. And now we kind of have what we have over there. And now the development you're going to see go forward, it's just going to be kind of stepped up. It's not going to be this big boom. Get in early and get that, like first round investment before you go public. I'd say now it's gone public and now we're going to trade. The real estate's going to trade sort of off of a known market. I mean, Daniel, think about little Haiti. That's
I was just going to say a little Haiti, a little river. Is that the next frontier for this?
Yes.